I saw the email in my inbox and I was like, wait,
Yeah.
wasn't this the name of his first book? Am I remembering this wrong? So it's in paperback now.
Yeah, now it's in paperback. It's funny because I actually had someone ask and they were like, why do books always come out in hardcover and then a few years later come out in paperback? And I was like, I don't know. It's just sort of sometimes a decision that the publisher makes. So we did a whole new like redesign of the cover and repackaging, which is kind of fun, but I think it's also trying to hit that like next group of people.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes total sense. Well, we are already recording, so we can banter here a little bit as we get
Mm-hmm.
into the conversation. I believe this is your third time on the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you go ahead, just from a high level, reintroduce yourself to the
Mm-hmm.
listeners?
Yeah, so my name is Tyler. I am known online as Tidy Dad. I'm a dad of three. I have three daughters. They're now 11, 9, and 6. I've been married to my wife, Emily, for 18 years now as of yesterday, but yet we are still living in our small 750 square foot apartment in New York City. We also have a cottage in Pennsylvania where we live in the summertime, but I'm also a New York City teacher by day and then tidy dad by early mornings and afternoons, really just trying to help people tidy up their spaces, but also even more tidy up their lives. That I feel like since the book has come out, I've even had this new like tidy up my life 2.0, tidy up my life 3.0. And as our girls are getting older, it really challenges some of the systems and routines that we've had in place in our apartment. Well, now we're navigating this whole new, like, what does it look like to have a pre-teenager, as I call her? What does it look like to have older kids? What does it look like now we're really done with the baby and the preschooler type stuff? And it's like, how do we now establish this new rhythm to our family that looks very different from years ago when I was starting out as Tidy Dad?
You spoke to that here at the beginning because if people go back and listen to those two conversations that we've had, they'll get some more insight into who you are. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, your daughters were much younger at that point in time, and yet you're still living in this space as they're getting older. Maybe they have more things. I guess I have two questions here for you. One, are they still on board with this lifestyle? And then
Mm-hmm.
two, how do you give them autonomy as they're growing and maybe wanting more things, or do they see the benefit of how you've been living?
So I do, we had a big question last summer when we were traveling from my oldest daughter. We were driving, my family lives in Kentucky. My sister has this huge palatial farmhouse. And she was like, Daddy, are we poor? Like, do we not have as much money as Aunt Kristen? And I was like, well, why do you ask? And she was like, well, we live in a really tiny apartment. And I was like, we're not poor. Everybody has decisions. They get to make choices about where they want to live. Aunt Kristen wants to live in this huge farmhouse. Your mommy and I, we've decided that we really like living in New York City. Our small apartment works. We also have the cottage in Pennsylvania, which is pretty cool that we have the two spaces to go back and forth between. But I was like, but the nice thing about life is that someday you're going to get to choose where you want to live. It might be a huge farmhouse. It might be a small apartment. And I was jokingly, I was like, I would just like to have a space to sleep when I come and visit you. Like, I would like to live with you for months out of the year. So if you want to have a huge farmhouse, that would be great. I would like a like built-in sauna. And I was like joking with her about the things that I want. Our daughters, they do ask questions, but also life in our small apartment is totally normal for them. When they think about all of their peers in school,
Mhm.
everybody lives in a small apartment. And that's so different than when you live in the suburbs, that I do feel like you have a bit more diversity in terms of a school population
Sure.
and kids who live in apartments or large homes or smaller homes, that it really is normal to them. And in terms of sort of stuff and autonomy, I feel like the question that we continue to get online is this idea of privacy
Yeah.
and independence and what that is going to look like. They're really on board with the dealing with their stuff. I have to say, they're really good at making decisions about what to keep and what to move out. They know what it's like when the playroom, for example, feels really, really stuffed. We've been working on their bedroom and updating it so that it feels more like a big kid room. Like we brought in a desk where my oldest daughter now does her homework, but the other girls like to sit there and like draw or color or do slime, which has like taken over our house.
Yeah.
But I feel like with independence, that's something we're really trying to navigate. And what is it going to look like to give independence? I think that we've done a lot of reading about the types of families, and it falls into like two camps, which it would be interesting for you too, what you feel like your family is. There's like the bedroom families, and then there's the living room family. And I feel like we are forced to be a living room family, but
Yeah.
that's also okay. I oftentimes, when my oldest daughter, I'll find her like reading on the couch and listening to her Yodo player, which is the like the audio player with her
Yeah.
headphones, or like putting on her headphones and doing her like knitting or drawing. And I feel like that's how she sort of retreats within our like very small space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's funny you say that because I was a living room child and my sister was a bedroom child. So it could be personality as well.
Right.
You do have the space.
Yeah, that is interesting. And, I just, when people ask questions or when they push back, I think it's knowing the reality of New York City. If our children were like, we all want to be bedroom children, we all want to have our own bedrooms, what we would have to give up in order to make that possible, I don't think that it's a trade off that we would be in favor of. I live 6 blocks away from my school. So I
Mm.
still walk to and from school every day. My youngest two kids still go there. My oldest is going to middle school. I walk home for lunch every day. In the afternoons, we're like out. The girls have activities. We're playing at the park. I feel like so much of what life happens now in our home is we eat dinner, we go to bed, and we wake up and eat breakfast the next morning. And then the other times we're just like out. So
Yeah.
it has been really interesting to explore what comes next, but for now it still continues to work.
When we brought home our third child to an 800 square foot duplex. We lived in one. We owned it, but we lived on
Hmm.
one side. That's when we ended up moving because I had been sleeping on a futon throughout my entire pregnancy. I was like, it's time. We need a backyard.
Yeah, yeah.
But what is my point? Oh, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but there have been heat map studies exploring the spaces that we inhabit in our homes. And I mean, for me, if I was to look at the where I sit, it's in this chair that I'm currently speaking to you in. It's at the one edge of the couch. I never sit on the other edge of the couch. I'm always on that
Hmm.
side of the
Hmm.
couch. My bed, the bathroom, getting ready, showering, getting ready for the day. But it's like we have all this space. And so, do you really need it? Like you're saying, if your daughter can kind of go inward in a sense on the couch, or if we're just there to eat and we have this rich life outside, we don't really need the space as much. And that's what I found living in that duplex for 8 years. Like we were there, but it didn't really, some people want to, they're homebodies and they want their home
Hmm.
to be where they spend the majority of their time. But for us, it was like, well, we don't spend enough time here to really need that much space.
Yeah, and that's what I go back to, especially in New York City. Like, people don't live in New York City to sit in your apartment all day long. Even thinking about like the pandemic and just being stuck, and even the work from home, like, I enjoy getting out every single day. I enjoy the walk to the grocery store, the walk to and from school, the seeing of neighbors, that even like our school crossing guard, like she was gone for a month in the middle of the school year, and she finally came back, and I was like, oh my gosh, we missed you, where have you been? And she was like, I went to Greece because I had a family member who had died. Like, even just knowing that there are those people that we have interactions with every day, that's what New York City is. New York City is a bunch of small towns all sandwiched on top of one another, and every like 5 to 10 block radius feels so different from the next. But I feel like our girls do understand the benefits that we have in New York City, while I also am trying to open them up to dream about whatever it is that they want. Because just because my wife and I chose a small apartment, again, that doesn't mean that they have to choose the same. But what I hope is that they don't make decisions in life based on burdens that they feel of stuff. Because that's also all these years into Tidy Dad. I have people who are like, I'm totally on board with all of these strategies. I read the book. I can do this, that, and the other. I'm loving it. And then I have the people who just DM me all of their excuses.
Mm.
And you can find an excuse for almost any life situation that you're in. You know, you can blame it on other people. You can blame it on having young kids. You can blame it on not knowing where to start with your stuff, not wanting to get rid of, not having the time, the energy, whatever. But I hope that this new iteration of Tidy Dad is helping people to find a way out of all of those excuses. And I think that when I share with people that I'm still working full time as a New York City public school teacher, plus have those 3 kids at home, like I'm still in the thick of everything that people are experiencing too.
No, absolutely. I was curious. I don't know if I asked you this before. Again, sorry, I should have done my research a little bit better. But do
Mm,
you consider yourself to be a minimalist? Because minimalism and tidying are two very different things.
they are, and I don't think that we are true minimalists in that. And again, this is a very sort of binary definition of what minimalism is, which oftentimes people think that minimalism is trying to live with the lowest number of physical possessions possible. And I don't think that that's actually realistic or a joyful way to live. I think that we all have different thresholds of the amount of stuff that we really want around us that help us to feel sort of comfortable, and also have that mental clarity. You know, there are categories like my closet and clothing. I would say that I'm I would say that I'm really a minimalist when it comes to clothing, in that my closet is 14 inches wide, 6.5 feet tall. I also have a dresser, but like when I get new things, I'm like purging and get rid of the old stuff. In the past year and a half, I've lost 30 pounds. I've like changed my total body composition. I've been trying to work on my fashion as I turn 40. It's like this is the this is the time to do it. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that I hold on to everything. I had my colors analyzed back in the fall, and that was so revealing to me. And I was like, it's easy for me to move out all of this olive stuff because the color person told me that olive just completely drains me, you know, but yet there are other categories of things where I do like to have a bit more. And I think that in terms of minimalism, you know, I think that we're constantly jockeying for space in our apartment and navigating who gets to allocate real estate where.
Mhm.
Um, but our landlord, because I also clean the building now, that's a new job for me.
Okay.
That
Many
which
side
I
hustles. You wear many
which
hats.
yes, which I enjoy. But she gave us a closet down in the basement, so we were now able to move the like out of season clothing from our girls' wardrobes down into this one closet in the basement. But that opened it just like opened up a world of possibilities in our apartment. So, you know, we're not minimalists, but you better believe that we have to keep tabs on every physical possession that comes into our space, which is also hard being in this like author influencer space because everyone wants to send you stuff, which is wonderful, but it's also knowing how do you set boundaries on those things because you can't just consume, consume, consume.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, in getting a little bit into your book here, halfway through our conversation, you have a book, Tidy Up Your
Hmm.
Life, Rethinking How to Organize, Declutter, and Make Space for What Matters Most. Again, this came out a couple years ago. What year?
Came out in 2015. Now the paperback is out. It's also available in audiobook too. I do read the audiobook, which was really fun. So you can like listen as you are sort of cleaning or decluttering.
Yeah. You said 2015. I think you meant
Or
2025.
2025. The past year and a half has felt like 10 years.
Yes.
And people are like, you seem to be aging in reverse. And I'm like, that's what happens after you write a book and you launch a book into the world while also you leave a really toxic workplace that you were in. I've started over at a new school. So
Oh,
it has been this like lifting of, in a way, after the book was first launched, while
yeah.
also taking my own advice that I'm sure you have to remind yourself too, that it's like we're not just these robots just coming up with all of this advice that we're spitting out. Like we have to practice what we preach.
Yes. Well, and so in your book, you have part one, which is tidy up your mind, and then part two, which is tidy up your space. And maybe you can speak to, I would love to hear just a little bit more about your personal evolution of self here in your 40s,
Hmm.
because I think that's really fascinating too. But I would say you and I come at this from the same perspective that if you don't first put your mind in order, then it's not sustainable. You're not going to have sustainable change in the home. And it was once I made that decision, it was clear to me what I valued. Actually, I was able to rip many band-aids off through the sentimental items. It's always a process, but I just felt like that mental clarity is what I needed to then move through the home. And
Hmm.
now, because I've done our home and our home is as minimalist as I like it to be, I can put that effort into, you're right, the Pilates classes, the margin in my week, the self growth, the whatever it is. So, curious to hear how that has impacted you and why you do think that that mental piece is so important.
Well, I feel like the possessions in our home, it's actually pretty insignificant when you think about like the impact on your day to day, or like how you're viewed in the workplace, or like the number of now like woven polo shirts that I have in my closet. It actually doesn't matter to the students that I teach, apart from them saying, why do you always wear the same clothes, or when are you going to get a new shirt? But I feel like with physical possessions, that was the training ground for how to actually make decisions, how to actually set boundaries, and actually how to name what's important in my life. Because when I actually, from a granular level, thought about what clothes do I like to wear? What do I actually feel good in? What fabrics do I like? Even going into the kitchen of like, what do I really love in that blender? Like, what are the features that I actually want to have? What do I love from my like water bottle that I take out with me? What are the features? I don't think we often think about the impact that these little bitty possessions can have on our day to day joy and happiness. And we should be surrounded by the things that we enjoy and we use. And so, thinking about my personal evolution after the book, it was this great sort of existential moment, and this existential, I don't want to say crisis at the same time, but for years I'd been blogging and writing and sharing as Tidy Dad. My goal was I always wanted to write a book. From the time that I was a kid, I thought that I was going to do two things. I was going to be a TV meteorologist, and I was going to write travel brochures, because as a kid of the 90s, how we learned about travel was at rest stops. And I would see all of those brochures, and I was like, how cool would it be to be the person who gets to travel to all those places and write those brochures for other people to read about? And so, as Tidy Dad, I do feel like I've lived out some of my childhood dreams, and my childhood self is proud of me. And another goal I had was to go on the Today Show. And so, the initial book week, I went on the Today Show, and it was this wonderful moment. I got very emotional right before the segment started, because it was this like that manifesting it. I was actually standing in that studio, and as they ran the piece before my segment, I started crying, and Jenna Bush Hager had to like grab my arm, and she was like, we're so proud of you. You've come so far. And I had to pull myself together. I had to like count down from 5, and then that red light came on, and it was showtime. I had to dry the tears. But I took a picture afterwards, and the one shirt that I felt like fit, I remember looking back at that photo, and the buttons were like open, because I had my arms around, my wife was there, and Hoda Kotb and Jenna Bush Hager, and it just didn't fit. And I just didn't feel good about myself. And I didn't feel like I looked like how I did years ago. And I think that so many listeners can relate to that story, because I think when we think about career and family and the demands of home life, we so often put ourselves last, even though every time we get in an airplane, the stewardesses remind us that you always have to put your oxygen mask on first before you help someone else. And so this Tidy Dad 2.0, I've really had to look at myself, and it's like, okay, how do I take the routines and systems that I wrote about in the book, and how do I apply these now to new aspects of my life? And so one choice I talk about, a strategy in the book for survival seasons, is sometimes you have to throw money at a problem. And so there had been this trainer online that I had been following for years that worked specifically with teachers. And finally I was like, maybe I should just hire him to help me. I was like, I can't mentally think through what to do to overhaul my health, and maybe he can. So I threw money at him instead of throwing money at takeout, which was very easy to do when I was overwhelmed. And with him, I was like, but I can't go to a gym. That just doesn't work in my schedule. My kids are still little. I have my school day. And he was like, so we'll design a program for you at home. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's what I've been doing for the past year and a half. And I do think so often we think that the overhaul has to be these huge things overnight, but it is this layering of routines that can gradually reveal to us who we are as these like new people. We're constantly evolving.
Yeah. Yeah. Carl Jung says, let me make sure I get it right. He says life begins at 40. Up until then, it's only research. I'm pretty sure that that's, if I paraphrase it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when we do hit that midpoint, we'll say, maybe not necessarily midlife, maybe it is or not. Yeah, we have to start to reevaluate and say, what do I want to take into the next even year of my life? I don't know. It is all research up until that point. And I think in regards to tidy up your life, it's not just, as you said, about the tangible things. It's who am I? What do I want? What aligns with my values? How do I tidy up the mental clutter? How do I tidy up the podcast that I'm listening to, the television that I'm taking in? Like, whose voices do I want in my mind all the time? And I think that's what my evolution has been, is just really turning the volume down on politics, on influencers, on even people in my life that you kind of just want to put a distance between. None of this is in a rude manner. It's just like, I want to be, yes, in a sense, my best self moving forward, because there's too many things we're juggling. As my kids get older, I feel like they actually require so much more of me than they did when they were little. It is just so much more mental.
100%. The mental, emotional, and also physical energy that you have
Yeah.
to give. And I
Yeah.
continue to justify to people why people continue to ask, like during the school year and even now during the summer, I get up every morning at 4:30. I go to bed by 9, but I wake up, and as my coffee brews, I have a yoga practice that I do. Then, when the coffee is finished, I was now told that I need to do this like squat position to drink my coffee. So I'm in this crouched squatting position, and I read a chapter of my book, whichever book I'm currently reading. Then I do my workout routine. While I'm working out, I think about the breakfast that I want to make for my children. Then they sort of find me at some point during my workout. I make breakfast. We sort of do the morning run, and then I'm off to school. But the biggest thing that I have shifted going back to that noise was even living the sort of like influencer life as tidy dad. You know, I used to store every morning. I would wake up and I would show all of my stories that I was doing, which was like the cleaning routine, what I'm cooking, all of this. It was sort of like live. And it was back in the fall. This woman was like, she was very kind, but she was like, you know, I just love every morning how gentle it is to sit and drink my coffee and watch all of your stories. And I was like, that's really kind. But I was like, but why can't I have a life where I can sit and drink my coffee and have choice time like that in the same way? I was like, I'm working from the time that I am up until then the time that my like children go to bed at night, and I love what I do as tidy dad, but I did not become tidy dad to max out every waking hour and feel like I have to produce and be on for people. And so a big shift that I made this school year was I now don't open my phone until 7 a.m. I don't check news. I don't check social media. I don't do anything. I will still film a few stories. We'll sort of like put them up and move on. But my attachment to this device has shifted. And a lot of that was, again, you sort of talking about politics and news events. I realized that the news, I wasn't in control over when I was consuming the news, that I would open up an app and I was bombarded with all of these things. It doesn't mean that I don't want to be educated about it, but not having choice over how I'm consuming,
Mhm.
it just really revolutionized now my mornings, that it's so peaceful to just wake up and be sort of in this little bubble. And then, before I go to school, I always go to my trusted news source and I read for about because I do need to be educated before I go into the school day with my
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about, I feel like is so powerful. And that does relate to minimalism. It relates to what noise do you cut out in order to become a minimalist about the areas of your life that you truly care about. It's not just the physical stuff.
What's an assumption about yourself that is untrue that people may have?
It's funny because I actually I get it from family members as well. It's this sort of like obsession I think that I have, that I have this misconception online about OCD tendencies, that it started as the cleaning, then it shifted to the tidying. Now I'm like totally into this like physical health. Oh, and to me, I feel like it's really easy to get these very narrow viewpoints on people while also not allowing people to evolve and grow and change. That I'm not a huge Swiftie, even though I know she just had her wedding. It was in New York City. But I didn't watch the full Eras concert, but I actually watched the documentary behind it. And something that was really my takeaway from that was I do think that we have different eras of our life, that there are different seasons where we pursue certain things. And I do think that it's okay to allow ourselves to evolve. And my wife and I, we just celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary. We got married super young. She was 21, I was 22. I turned 40 last month. She's turning 40 in August. But my takeaway yesterday as we were walking was I was like, I'm just so grateful. One, that we married one another, but two, that we have allowed one another to evolve. And we're not the people that we were when we got married. I mean, we have the foundation of our values and core beliefs and principles, but we've changed as people. And I think that that is okay. And so that's just a big misconception that I try to sort of fight against is it is okay to evolve. It is okay to pursue and make space for what matters to us while also silencing the noise and the critique that comes from, because everybody is always going to have something to say, but it's often people who make excuses or maybe see something in you that they wish that they had in themselves, or I don't know. So I don't know if that answers your question,
No.
but it's
Well, I was curious. I couldn't decide if I wanted to ask that or ask you if you think that the way you're living right now is sustainable. So I know there are naysayers that are like, "Oh, he gets up at 4:30, he's drinking his coffee in a squat position. He's not going to do that until he's 60." I think there are people that think that, but it's like maybe I don't need to do that till I'm 60, but that works right now. And does it mean it didn't work then if it doesn't work when I'm 60? You know what I'm saying? That
yeah,
is
it does. And I think that we have different seasons where we need different things. At some point, I know that my house is going to be very quiet,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to need that
Mhm.
early morning quiet time in the same way that I do now with an 11, 9, and 6-year-old.
Yeah.
But right now, if I don't get up in the morning and have some semblance of quiet before my day, which again is being with my daughters, then going to screaming children. I teach fifth grade.
Yeah.
So I'm with children all day long and then doing the like activities, park, dinner, bed. Like it doesn't get easier when the girls are independent. There's still so many more things. Dealing with the sister squabbles, that the noise in my house, the decibel levels, I'm still working on. And just because it's sustainable for me doesn't mean it's sustainable for other people. And I'm not telling other people that they should be doing all of these things. What I hope is that people see whatever tips or strategies that I'm sharing as sort of a mirror back to them so that they can self-reflect and think, how might I want to structure my morning a little bit differently?
Mhm.
Do I want to sleep in? Do I want to be a night owl? I actually don't care, but I know that I'm not my best self if I stay up till 11 o'clock every night, wake up at 7, and then try to roll on with my day. You do you, but I do think that the principles of tidying up your life really do transcend life situation and season because people have told me that it helps.
Absolutely. Well, kind of as we wrap up here, I'm glad this conversation was so different than the other two that we had. So I'm just really excited to have dove into
Yeah,
your information.
it's funny because I can look back. I would have to listen back to old interviews too, because I do feel like there were times when I can come across sort of like as a tightly wound top. And it's sort of like I like things put in their place. I like having systems. I like having routines. But yet, I'm now, and maybe this is turning 40, it's recognizing what worked, what didn't, self reflecting, moving on, naming what's important for this season, but not, I don't think that I'm as fixated anymore on proving myself to other people. And maybe that's been the biggest sort of evolution with tidying up my life
Yeah.
since the last time we talked, that it's like, I like what I like, I know what I don't like, but
Yeah.
I can no longer listen to the noise of what other people are going to judge me regardless. Whether you write, have a podcast, or whatever, everyone is always judging you. And so, how do you sort of quiet that noise and carve out the path that is just for you and your family? And that's what's most important.
Yeah. I think the emphasis on strong friendships, I used to have several, like many, many acquaintances. And now I feel like I put a lot of effort into just maintaining a handful of really close relationships. And it's like, that's my support system. So, regardless of what's happening, I launched my rebrand of Minimalist Moms Clear Intentions last year. And it was really embarrassing to have to pull that off and not do that and go back to Minimalist Moms. But it's like the support that I felt from my close people. It's like, that's okay. Like, try, fail. Like, it didn't matter
Hmm.
if anyone thought it was stupid. I felt support. And it's like, that's all I really need. So, I totally
Hmm.
agree with you in tidying. I just feel like, in a sense, I tidied the relationships in my life too. Again, not that anyone was like rude or wrong. It's just like you only have so much capacity in your day to.
Yes, and even with your like rebrand or launch, that so many people don't try. And so many people stay fixed in either living in the space that they're in and they're just like, it is what it is. Or they stay in a job that they feel like is crushing them. Even relationships and friendships where they're like, just going to continue to roll with this because it's what I've always done. And I feel like that's what we're talking about is it is shifting this minimalist approach, that it's not just about the physical stuff. Now, I do still believe that starting with the physical stuff is great training ground. But once you've, you know, tidied your house, there is then all of these other categories which are really fun to dive into. And I think that, I don't know, we have to sort of unpack the failures as much as we do the wins and the successes and realize that it's all just a stepping stone towards whatever is actually supposed to happen next. And having that support system, like you said, is true. That was one of my goals. I wrote, what do I want to be true in my 40s? And I actually wrote friendship as one of them that I want to dive more into because I feel like that is, it's like, it's so hard to keep up with your job, keep up with your children, keep up with your physical health, serve the really healthy meals, stay current on shows that you want to watch. It's still hard to have a book going and a show going at the same time. I feel like I have to choose either one. And then when you couple in like friendships, and I'm talking about beyond just memes. I think people were talking about how we now communicate with friends through the videos that we watch that remind us of our friends, and you just now text your friends like the videos, and that's how you maintain your relationship. But I am trying to like lean into physical friendships and time in this like next season.
Yes, absolutely. And to maybe as we wrap up here, you said that the house is preparation for the other cool things that we have in our lives. And I do think that's true. They say like a cold plunge or a sauna, like that is discomfort that we can endure so that when the hard, challenging life stuff happens, we're actually able, we have a higher tolerance for it. So I think it's the same thing. Yeah, the stuff, even though it can feel overwhelming, especially if we have an abundance of things in our home, an abundance of inventory, like once you get that down, you are just far more capable than you think at going and really cultivating that intentional life that, again, you and I have both seen the other side, and we're able to kind of pick and choose at this point. So yes, all of this is connected. Tidying and decluttering and minimalism, it all is connected in curating that intentional lifestyle.
And it's why when people are like, well, where do I start? It's why I always say you have to start with your stuff. You so often we're motivated to start with the kids' stuff, start with our spouse's stuff, start with the sentimental, that it's like, think about this super narrow categories like your toiletries, your work bag, the apps on your phone screen, where you like to score your credit cards and your bank cards, how you're dealing with your keys. Where does your sunglasses go? Like, those are little things that while they may seem insignificant, they actually have a big impact on your day. Being able to find your headphones when you want to find your headphones, knowing where your running shoes are, knowing where your favorite pair of socks are. Those are all things that we can easily discount, but like start there. That develops your decision making chops, and then move on to higher stakes things in your home or in your life. But at least start with the stuff where you don't have to negotiate.
Absolutely. Well, Tyler, where can listeners, if they want to learn more, grab a copy of your book and find you online, where can they do so?
So online, I'm Tidy Dad. I also have a micro podcast that's called Tidy Tidbits. Episodes are between like 5 to 10 minutes on narrow topics, but it also helps people. I'm also on Substack. I have a Substack called The Tidy Times, where I share new writing, a lot of tidy up your life-esque things. But just Google the word tidy, you'll see Marie Kondo, and then you'll see this dad, me, Tidy
Okay.
Dad.
Awesome. Just quickly here at the very end, rapid fire. Don't think too hard on these. Two questions. First one is, what has been a beneficial resource in your life that you want to share with the listeners?
Oh my gosh. I am about to interview her. It is this cookbook called What to Cook When You Don't Feel Like Cooking by
Yeah.
Caro Chambers. I cook from her cookbook every single day.
Okay. Well, I need to get better about doing that. I feel like I have my few that I go to, my few recipes. And yeah, I need to venture out. But cool. Well, I'll be sure to include that in the show notes for listeners. Then my last question is, what is something you can't stop talking about?
Oh, what I can't stop talking about. I think my books. I love reading. I love sharing with books. My favorite author right now is Joe Piazza. She'd be another. She has such good books, but they take me far away from my day-to-day life. And I love reading female authors, so there you go.
Yeah, she was on promoting what's her travel?
Everyone is lying to you.
Yeah, that was, this is a controversial take, but that was like my original Yesteryear. I don't know if you read Yesteryear.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I I really like Joe Piazza's book.
Yeah,
Everyone's lying here. Yeah.
everyone is lying to you. And you read Yesteryear?
I have like 30 pages left. I have mixed opinions. I'm not a huge fan. I don't love it.
Yeah, well, I have a hard time with books where there's no one to root for, and
Yeah.
this might be the like tidy up my life in me. If I don't see a growth arc, that's something that's really hard for me. That there were characters in Yesteryear where I did see the growth arc, but not in her, and it's really hard to read a book where you so dislike
The main.
someone and you so dislike the people around her that are supposed to be supporting her, because clearly there's something going on. Yeah, so I went from Yesteryear, then I read her new book, The Parisian Heist, and I was like, thank goodness. I was like, these women, while they may be stealing art, I at least can really root for them, and I really hope that they get this stolen. So,
I think you're right. If you just, yeah, I'm gonna stay in there for the last 30 pages because I want to figure out if there's anything big that
well,
happened.
and also our backgrounds in religion and Christianity, there is just it brings to mind so many things that I'm like, oh my gosh, could a turn of a dial in a different direction, could this have been
Yeah.
me? And when her husband wanted to become a teacher and she had just such this visceral reaction to him, I was just like, how dare you? How am I going to continue reading this book? So anyway,
Well, you know, I'm
but
married
it
to,
also get
did you know that?
right.
Yeah, I'm married to
Yes.
a high school teacher. So yes,
Yeah, it's like,
lots of
so
parallels.
I do feel like it's one of those books that brings to mind, I don't know, there's so many layers, but because I talk about
Everyone,
Joe so much and they're just like, you recommended that book and you recommended Yesteryear, but I hate Yesteryear. And I was like, I didn't recommend Yesteryear. I said that it was very thought provoking.
yes,
But I
I
do
will.
love having an audience that is like engaged readers, which I
Yeah,
do have. That it's like they they love to read. So
yeah, yeah. Well, Tyler, as I said, it was great getting to deep dive a little bit more with what's going on with you. Again, the book, Tidy Up Your Life, such a great read now in paperback when this goes live. So thanks so much for sharing with us today.
thanks for having me.